Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of We Might Be Crazy. Episode 8, crazy. Today I'm joined by my good friend, Tom Southey, aka Southey Music on Twitch. Dude, so good to have you here.
Mate, thank you for having me on. Cheers.
I appreciate I kind of messaged you a bit last minute. Normally it's a few weeks in advance, but I had someone cancel, so I'm like,
Last minute's good.
I had to like, who do I know who would be down to hop on a podcast and probably have a chat? Southey, of course.
Yep.
Why don't you give us a little bit of an intro, dude?
Yeah. I'm a singer-songwriter from Sydney, Australia. I've got music on Spotify. I do the singer-songwriter kind of thing, as you'd expect. It's funny. I have a kind of like a summary of, I guess, from talking to just like my parents' mates and stuff. They're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Okay, how do I boil this down to the simplest way?" Like, and like, Ed Sheeran, how he does the guitar sing thing. That's what I do. But I also write my own music and I produce my own music and I play gigs around. I live stream on Twitch. I do the musician thing, which in itself is about like 12 different jobs.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always something and it keeps you busy all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You said something really interesting, which I really want to touch on quickly. Explaining what you do to, I guess, your parents and your parents' friends. Like, what kind of reactions do you get?
I've actually just had some business cards made that say, on one side, they say, they think they're actually, they might be here. I think they're coming today. I got a thing.
Show us a business card.
Wait.
Do you have them here?
Just give me... Wait, no, I'll come back to you because I think it literally said they'd be delivered today. So I think they might be in the mailbox outside. Maybe I can run out and check at the end.
Yeah.
On one side, they say, yes, this is my full-time job. And on the other side, they say, no, I won't play Wonderwall. And that's it. Because they're the two things I have to say to people most of the time. Yeah. So
that's really interesting. We're going to come to that. We're going to come to this point in time, present day, Southey, and you're streaming, all that stuff. But I think I'm most curious. I don't think you and I have ever had like a chat where we've kind of talked a bit about, I guess, our backgrounds. So obviously, perfect place to have that conversation. What part did music play in your life kind of growing up? And like, when did you start picking everything up?
I always loved music. I played the trumpet. I still play the trumpet a bit, but I was like a school, in school when you get to pick your instrument, you go to the, what's it called? There's a thing you go to and it's pretty gross in terms of COVID things now when you think about it. And they have like all these instruments and as a kid you go around and you try each one.
Yeah.
And they kind of wipe them down afterwards. And then if you're a kid and you can make a note on the trumpet, they're like, you can play the trumpet. It's like a weird... ritual thing they do at primary schools in like year 1 or 2. Did you do that?
I think I did that in high school, where they kind of just forced us to like go to a music class. It's like, oh, like here's a guitar, here's a piano. Like, can you? Because they've got music teachers at our school, so they're like, oh, like, hey, you kind of seem like you're okay at this thing. Like, you should go over here.
That's what they kind of do. They kind of see if you have like. If when you first touch it's like Harry Potter, when you first touch the wand, if like your hair stands up, they get the trumpet and they're like, if you can do something with it, then this is your thing, and they kind of,
the boy who blew the trumpet come to make tunes.
It seems like a really weird thing because you have to learn a skill, but they just give it to kids. And if kids can make a note, I think they immediately decide, okay, if you can make a note, you've already skipped potentially if some kid just can't get it and they're practicing for weeks, they just skip that awkward phase of that. So anyway, trumpet. Played trumpet all the way through school in the big bands and orchestra and sort of like all the school bands.
Yeah.
And then probably when I was in high school, I used to have like a little ukulele I'd like dabble on, learn a few chords, sing a couple songs. And then after I finished school, I didn't have any bands anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, okay, I'm forgetting some stuff here.
I was gonna say, so you've you've picked up like guitar and like singing stuff relatively recently then, like after high school.
I guess so, but I've just remembered that's not necessarily true. When I was in year 6 or year 5
Yeah.
in school, so I was probably, how old is that? Is that like 12, 11, 12?
Year 6, yeah, it would be 11 or 12. Yeah.
I was in a rock band
Oh.
with the boys. I was in a rock
yeah.
band. We were called the Corrosives, and I played bass. I don't really know how that started. I think one of my friend's dads just thought, you guys should start a band. So
That's a good
I
idea.
just became the bass guy. My friend became the guitarist, and then my other friend he was already like a school drummer, so he could drum, which is obviously like an actual skill compared to us with our like smoke on the water. So we'd for a couple of years we had a music teacher, and he was kind of like it was very School of Rock actually. He was just like a dude who just like was in a few rock bands, like an older dude, and what he would do is he'd teach all of us how to play each instrument.
That's
so he'd kind of teach
awesome,
my mate
actually.
drums, And the way we do it, which is really cool, is we'd learn songs. So he'd go like, okay, Smoke on the Water, and so he'd do like a 15 to 20 minute lesson with the guitarist.
Yeah.
While me and James would go play outside and kick a ball around, and then I'd go in, do my like 20-minute bass lesson for the same song, and then James would come in, do his 20-minute drums, and then the last 20 minutes we would play, and it would sound really, really bad. But it was cool. It was actually like for like year 5 and 6 kids, we were like the coolest ones at the school. We did some gigs. We did a couple gigs. We played at like the school farewell, I think, and we played like.
It's always a little bit cringe though. It's like you get up and there's like playing in front of like your peer, because I did recorder, like we did all. We did like a whole recorder thing. I went to like one of those new age Steiner schools where everyone's like, let's learn how to play recorder. Good for the brain. And I just have like these PTSD flashbacks of getting made to play in front of like big events. I'm just like, oh.
You're triggering things deep in my memory. I had piano lessons when I was like 3, I think.
It's all coming out now.
I just remembered that. And it was like weirdly like culty. Like you go into like a little room and there's like just keyboards lined up. Do those things exist anymore? Those music schools that were like, my mum would just drop me off there. So I guess, this is all added into what I am now. But yeah, it was like this weird keyboard school, which I really didn't like. And you'd sort of go in and every desk had a keyboard and some music, and you'd learn like very basic stuff.
Yeah.
Like hot cross buns, you know.
Oh, classic.
I think I might have done that for a couple months when I was very young.
Yeah. Wait, when you were 3?
Oh, I don't know if it was 3. I have no concept of my childhood in terms of time. I could have been anywhere between 3 and 10. Probably not 3. Now I think about 3-year-olds. Yeah, probably not 3. I wouldn't be able to sit still. No.
Do you have much of like a musical family, or is this kind of stuff that you've picked up outside of, I guess, stuff that you've
not really
from your parents? Yeah.
Mum and dad aren't musical.
Yeah.
Dad has good taste in music. Mum probably doesn't have much taste in music. But yeah, they're not musical at all. My brother and sister have both done instruments in school, but they're not musical now either. So it's kind of just me.
I know that you're an electrical engineer, but I'm so excited to get to the line of like, screw this life, I'm gonna be a musician.
Yeah.
But when did you start, I guess, picking up guitar and singing and start to kind of do all that stuff?
So I played the ukulele a little bit, so I kind of knew a couple of chords on that through high school. It was after high school. So after I started uni, I had a guitar. I wasn't very good. I could do a couple of chords on it, a couple of bits and pieces. I think I might have known a song or two. I can't really remember why. I used to like singing.
Yeah.
I used to like singing, not in front of people. And I used to like playing guitar. And then I don't know what necessarily pushed me into doing it, but I started busking. Like when I knew like 5 songs. And I think that was kind of because I had housemates at the time. Okay. I just started uni, had housemates, and I couldn't really like play in the house. And I was living right near Central Station in Sydney, and there's like a train tunnel that people busk in. And I was right next to that. So I was like, I could just go down and busk. They're all strangers. They don't know anyone.
In terms of the people
it's
you're
much-
living with, like strangers, housemates?
Oh yeah, I was living with strangers, but I think
Okay.
the thing was like for me, I don't know about you, but I find it so easy to play to people I don't know.
Oh, 100%.
But as soon as there's people you
So
know,
much
you're like,
easier.
oh, these people know me. It's like,
And
it's
do
weird.
do you also get the thing where like if you're playing at home and I'm just like constantly stressing about like, am I being too loud? Am I annoying people? Are they trying to relax? And I'm just like, "La, la, la, la."
And it throws you off.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky actually because I'm not a very loud singer
Yeah.
or guitar player because I don't use a pick, which means I play quite quietly and then I actually sing quite quietly. So I've got my mic always turned right up, my guitar pickup turned up, but it's good because I tend to not be too noisy because I used to
I'm
live in a
jealous.
share house.
I'm so jealous.
all through Twitch. I was living in a share house with a door that I built myself. That wasn't like a proper door, and I never had any complaints. And so, and I think if I was allowed a singer, I would have not been able to do, 6-hour streams.
Yeah.
When I needed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm quite lucky with that I sing quite quietly, in some ways.
And then, so I'm just so curious because you went from like, oh yeah, like kind of know the ukulele, and then just going straight to busking. There's no, I suppose you have like
I'm trying
experience
to think. Was there an in
performing?
between? I might have forgotten some massive chapter. My memory is not that good.
Getting old, Tom.
Yeah. Well, okay, one thing I did which really helped was I do remember I started busking,
Yeah.
which is good fun. No, I had a job at a pizza place. And it was $15 an hour. And then I started busking, and I was like, I reckon I could make $15 in an hour. And that's all I had to make was $15 in an hour, which isn't much money.
Yeah.
But I started busking and I wasn't very good, and I knew maybe 4 songs or something. And that was kind of my main reason to start busking was because this job sucks. I'd rather play songs to people, and it's a bit exciting. Working in the pizza place, I'm just out the back, just like making toppings and things. So yeah, started doing that, and then and I had another housemate too. He's an absolute legend. He's from Brazil. He actually releases his own electronic music now. We're both kind of these like musicians living in this share house. He'd be like, he'd come with me, and sometimes he'd bring like a cajon and just like tap along, and then we'd go buy like a $10 steak afterwards. We've got to save $20 so we can each buy a $10 steak at the pub and just like buy dinner, and that was like our like mission. And it's fun. Like it was quite like a rewarding thing to do.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I was lucky enough that some girl came past one time and said, "Hey, do you want to play at a bar? I work at a bar, and we need some live music." And started playing at this bar, which wasn't too far away, and it was a 2-hour set for $80 and a sandwich.
A sandwich.
And a sandwich.
Love it.
And I was like, this is the best. I used to I used to get $15 an hour, so $80, which, okay, I just want to say that's very bad pay for a musician. Do not take $80 for a 2-hour gig. That's very bad. But when I started out, I'm like, this is amazing. Oh my God, this is better than my pizza job.
Yeah.
And so I started playing there, and I didn't have enough songs for 2 hours. That's the first thing. So I started playing, and I'm like, oh shit, I've only got like 6 songs. So I'd be sitting there playing, and I'd be anxiously looking at everyone on the tables, hoping they'd leave, because I didn't. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get back to the first song again. I'm already up to the 5th song, and they haven't left, which means they're going to hear me play the first song, and they're going to know I only know 6 songs. So I'd really stretch out some of the songs. But then over time, by doing it, I'd kind of include another song, and it just that little bit of anxiety and pressure just kept pushing me to just keep building
adding
the set
to the
list.
repertoire.
Like that's kind of how you get it going and getting better. And then I did that gig for maybe 8 weeks or something in a row.
Yeah.
And then that was a bad place to pay. And then one time he cancelled me like on the day, and it was all very not a good gig, very bad. But it was good in the sense that like it just kind of got me out there. And
that's kind of the beginning, right? Then I imagine from that point you just kind of scaled things up in terms of doing more gigs, I imagine.
Kind of, yeah. I did playing at that place. This is my first gig, playing at that little, it was actually quite cool. It was a Japanese retro cinema themed bar.
Cool.
It was
Very
actually
cool.
it was actually a very cool venue. It was really cool. It had like projectors and stuff on the walls with stuff moving, and it was very like Indian arty kind of. A girl came up to me and said, "Hey, do you do weddings?" And I was like, I guess I could do a wedding. And then she was like, "Oh, okay. Just quickly, roughly, how much would you charge for say 2 hours?" Or I think it was like for an hour of music, and I was like, "Oh," and this is me. Currently, I'm like, this $80 is amazing for 2 hours. I'm doing 2 hours for $80. So I like, and they put you on the spot. So I'm like, oh. So I did my first wedding for $140.
How much you charge now?
Oh, that's classified information. A lot more. A lot more.
If you want to quote for a wedding, go to Southey directly.
Yeah. Bump into me at a bar and just put pressure on me until I crack. I have to calculate
I'm
it
seeing
right
a trend
then.
though. It's like you're getting just approached by random people being like, "Hey, do you want to do this thing?" And you're like,
yeah, and it's kind of
yes.
just saying yes, and you got to be like, you just have to go with it a bit. So kind of there were those three things kind of happened directly. So it was the busking, which led to the bar, which led to the wedding, and then it kind of stopped there. And I was like, okay, I need, I guess if I want to do more gigs from that point, the snowball effect just kind of stopped at those three things. And I was like, I need to get gigs. I need to find some venues that do music and like email them and contact them. And that's always hard. It's like applying for a job.
Yeah.
So, but I had a little bit of confidence from doing it and kind of knowing how things worked, and slowly started to pick up some smaller market gigs and a couple of like, I've played everything. I think I've played like, I've done like some weird gigs at weird events. I can't even remember most of them, but like if you just tell me an event, I'm like, I've probably done one.
But what's the weirdest event you've ever played at? If you remember.
God, there's so weirdest event I've ever done.
So as soon as I said that, first thing came to your brain. What is the weirdest event you've played at? There's always one.
I don't know. The first one that came to my brain just then, I definitely don't think it's the weirdest one. I played a gig at a guy's house at a Christmas in July party. So in the middle of the year, Christmas in July party, and I was playing Christmas music. It was really weird. And they had like a celebrity chef there. And I didn't know who he was, but I think he was from the UK. He was like a proper, rich people pay celebrity chefs to come to their house to cook them like Christmas dinner in July. Anyway, wild. I was playing, and I was sitting next to a Christmas tree being like, this is bizarre. This is really weird.
This is a strange thing I've done recently.
And I'm looking around and they're all drinking like these out of cans. It's like really fancy, but they're all drinking out of cans. These like
Why
narrow
not have like fancy
cans.
nutmeg
And I was like,
eggnog
this is weird.
cocktails?
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it was seltzer. And at the time, I didn't know what seltzer was. Turned out this guy, they've come up with one of these seltzer companies. They're just starting one.
Oh, okay.
So they've got all this seltzer and he's just like flogging it to his friends because it's not out yet, getting them to try it and be like, how's this and that? Yeah. And then, that was quite a weird gig. And then mid-gig, they stopped me playing and they, on the big screen TV, they played an ad for the seltzer. And I won't name the brand. But it was just like this weird, really weird. The ad was cool, but it was really weird, culty, weird ad. And I was just in this weird community of people really drunk on this seltzer at this like fancy
Christmas in July. Yeah, okay. It's like, hey, I'm gonna come here to this party. I'm gonna give you seltzer that I've made and also show an ad that I suppose it's like, hey, this is the thing that I've done. It's pretty cool. Like,
I guess so. I kind of get it. And I went home with all the seltzer and I gave it to my friends. And I'm like, this is this new drink that's coming. And now I see it everywhere in the shops. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know where that came from.
So all this was happening though. And when you were living with your housemates, doing busking, doing these kind of gigs, you were also at university, right?
Yes. So I left school and didn't know what to do. Because there's a classic. Do you want to do a gap year or do you want to just jump into a degree? That's kind of like at least for like some of my friends, that's what everyone was doing. And I was like, I don't know if I want to travel right now and spend like, because you can sort of save money and then go away.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to have done quite a bit of travel, which I'm really fortunate for. So I decided, you know what, I'll go to uni and do engineering.
Why not?
As you do. I guess that's come from Dad did it.
Yeah.
engineering family. I'm always building and fixing things with dad and doing that sort of stuff. I'm always been good at like maths and physics and stuff. So just picked it. Like uni's weird because you don't think about, oh wait, this is debt I have to pay off. You're just like, oh yeah, just do that. Let's do that. So
it's so I honestly just like, oh, I'm just gonna go to university and like, I don't think I'm gonna be $30,000 in debt at the end of this. It's just gonna be like free fun time.
And everyone just tells you, oh, you'll like, it's hex. It doesn't matter. Like you never notice it. The first thing I've heard from my friends lately is like, oh my god, hex. It like
index for inflation, and inflation is like 7% or something like that.
Yeah. So I feel like people need to be not more educated about that. But like when I got out of school, it was like, oh, I practically thought it was free. They're like, oh, I remember going on the website. I'm like, what do I click? And people and the guy next to me is like, oh, you just click the hex one, like as if like that's the free thing you got to click. Not free, but you know what I mean. It's like you're just like, oh, okay, cool, click. So anyway, I've got a degree. 6 years later, it's a long degree. Yay.
6 years.
It's a 5-year degree, but it took me 6.
Yeah.
Because I think I don't know. I repeated one subject. Yeah. What was that one called? Anyway, it was not mechanics of solids. Any engineers out there, I feel your pain. Yeah, tough. Anyway, yeah, did mechanical engineering for 6 years. And at the same time, that's when I was starting to do these gigs at the bar. And so I was quite lucky. So since my degree was so long, by the time that I got to the end of it, I'd actually kind of built up quite a solid repertoire of gigs and set lists and things like that. So I was quite confident as like a gigging musician, like playing gigs around and stuff like that.
Were you supporting yourself, I guess, with music at that time while you were going to university, or were you doing other things to kind of sustain your lifestyle?
I definitely had... No, all those times I had other part-time jobs too. Okay. The gigs were just extra. Yeah. They weren't really like a proper income. They were just, I was just trying to get them just for the music side of it.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of jobs. I worked as a milkman for a bit, and there was a pizza place. I was a milkman, which is crazy. It's crazy that like I feel like I'm the last generation that will be able to say to my grandkids, I was a milkman, because I don't think you can do it anymore.
What does that involve though?
So this was as milkmen, people were like converting into more like delivery people, like on the edge, because there used to be like the old milk guys who'd come and like take the bottles and put the bottles out in front of your door, like in the olden days. I worked for a guy called Aussie. It's for Aussie Farmers Direct. Yeah, they're like a company of these little franchise vans that would drive around and drop off bread and milk. They do the bread milk combo. And then they started doing like groceries and stuff, but they would drop them off overnight. So it's there in the morning when you wake up. And I didn't realize at the time, I was a uni student. I had the guy, he was just like subletting his job to me. I was just doing his job and he was paying me a fraction of what he got paid. I didn't realize how much that happens. And it's really bad. So he had me doing it. He had this other uni student doing it too. And it's completely cash in hand off the books and like all that stuff. This guy, I was just doing this guy's job. Like, and then he had this other uni student doing his job another night. So I was driving a van around Sydney, his van. First I'd drive to his house and then I'd get his keys out his letterbox because he'd be asleep because it's a night shift. Get his keys out, get in his van, drive across Sydney to this warehouse in like Auburn. And I'd spend an hour and a half filling up the van in the Aussie Farmers factory, which I did not work. I had never like signed anything to say I worked there. I was just like in this factory with these people with forklifts and stuff going around.
So I've heard of people doing like marketing. So like I run a website that basically like hires cleaners. So like let's say I run the website, but then I'll go on like a cleaning site. I've never heard of actually someone having a job and then subletting that job to someone else.
Literally. And then he'd pay me, and I guess maybe he had an ABN. I don't know if he did it legit. I don't know if there's a way you can do it legit, because I think technically you with this company, your van is like your franchise,
right?
So you can buy like a route for them. And for me, it was like on the Northern Beaches. So I'd like load the van and then drive around the Northern Beaches to 120 houses in a night. 120 houses, 120 deliveries on my own. and it would take anywhere from 5-6 hours to 12 hours, depending on if it was raining or not. If it was raining, it took so much longer.
And you're doing this overnight too.
Overnight. So 7 till maybe 7 in the morning.
Oh.
For $120. Flat rate, not per hour. Not per hour. So the faster you work, the more you get paid. But it's still like a very bad rate. So I did that. So it was that was a bad job. That was my first job. I did that for a while. Anyway, one time the other guy, I never met him, but he had another foreign uni student doing a different night for him.
Yeah.
And he ran the van into the back of a parked car.
Oh.
And smashed the van up. And he was all right. But old mate, I guess that kind of screws him, because then he had to get a new van and do all this stuff. And then I guess that was his fault because he wasn't there. But yeah. Weird.
Things we do. I worked at a call center running political surveys, Roy Morgan Research, which was basically me.
I've
just
heard
like
of that one.
You'd probably get a call and you'd be like, "Hey, I'm from blah. I've got a survey about this. Do you mind if I just rattle off a few lines at you?" And you have to read everything verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you get points deducted, and then you get in trouble. So it's just me sitting in front of a computer with this auto dialer, calling people, and then I'm reading and inputting the answers into this survey. And I'm just like, this is. I mean, I would still give you the winner for most interesting and horrible job as the milk guy, but man, it was soul destroying. But things you do while you're at uni, right?
Yeah. You work it out. Yeah, that. And then I worked at a butcher for like 5 years in a butcher shop. And then I think that's the last one. There's probably another job in there somewhere.
There's always
probably.
another job.
I don't know.
Yeah. So 5 years, and then you actually 5 years at uni, and then you went into. Sorry, did you go into mechanical engineering or electrical engineering? Mechanical. Okay. Yeah. And how long? I guess you finished your degree, and I'm really curious to hear what were you thinking at that point? You're just like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go be a mechanical engineer. I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. Like this is a good idea for me.
I think I wasn't sure. I was definitely. I got through uni. P's get degrees. Passed my way through. Like I didn't get the best.
I've
marks
also said that at one
or
point.
anything.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't get the best marks or anything. Sort of like and mechanical engineering is like a hard degree. So I was like pushing
my
through
girlfriend did mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
So
it's not fun. There's no social life at uni. It's just like a slog. It's a slog. But once you get so far through, you're like, oh, I hate this. But I hate like the uni aspect of it. Like a lot of the jobs will be better, and you'll be doing something interesting, working on interesting projects and stuff. I was like, I've just got to finish it. Anyway, I ended up, in order to finish the degree, we had to do placements, like internships. And I did one here. We had to do 2 at UTS. That's why it's a longer degree. And they both have to be 6 months long, full time. So you have to work for a whole year to get your degree.
Paid?
Yes.
Okay.
Not well.
Yeah.
Pizza rates, but
yeah,
it's all right. So it's good in a sense that you have to do one about halfway through the degree.
Yeah.
So it's good in the sense that you get a bit of exposure to the actual workplace before you finish. So you can actually, some people get to that point, they go work in an internship and they go, I hate this. And then they just leave the degree, which is good because a lot of people finish their courses, start the job and be like, oh wait, I hate this,
Yeah.
It's good to kind of like get a
taste
of it. I did my second internship in England, actually, weirdly enough. I was doing it here at this company, which I won't name. I don't know if I can name it or not. But anyway, it was a plastics company. And I was another job. I was a CNC operator. So there's like a CNC is like a robotic cutting arm.
Yeah.
And if it's 3-axis, it's like a 3D printer that cuts.
Right.
So it's like it's got a drill and it goes bzz, 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 and like goes up and down and cuts and whatever. It's big. It's probably like as big as this room. And you put a piece of plastic in it and you can program it and it'll chop and like pretty much cut things to spec.
Yeah.
And so I was working for this company. I got an internship there and they said it would be like design engineering and like, you get to use program CNC and do all this stuff. Anyway, I get there and I start working. And turns out they were doing the job for Sydney buses, all the lights on the back of the buses, and
right.
the big plastic panels. So they would like vacuum mold these plastic panels, and then they need to cut them with this big, computer CNC computer something. I don't know. I passed. Whatever.
Computer directed.
Computer
degrees,
drill
baby.
robot thing. Anyway, I got there, and since we had thousands of units to do of the same thing, I didn't have to program anything. I got there and to this 6-month job, and I realized pretty quickly that I'm just an operator of the machine. I just have to press start, and then the machine does the work, and then I get the next bit of plastic, and then I put it in, and then I take that bit out, and then I like go around the edge with a bit of metal to clean it off, put it in a box.
You're not really doing any engineering. You're just kind of
I'm not doing any
at this point. Yeah,
I'm
just
kind
of I have a job
in a factory. I have a job in a factory, and I was like, okay, is this what I want to do for 6 months? Probably not. So I quit. For the first time, I like quit, which is a really good feeling because I never felt like I could quit. It's always like, stick at it, don't be a quitter, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, this is BS. This sucks.
Yep.
And I was like losing my mind because it was so monotonous.
Yeah.
I was just, I couldn't do it. So I quit, and then I ended up finding a connection in my dad's old uni lecturer. I happened to own a company in England. So I emailed him and ended up like, he said, oh, you can have a job over here if you come over here. So I was like, all right. So I went to England, and I was like, this will be interesting. Went to England, worked for 6 months at a company where we designed air conditioning and like lighting for offices and buildings, and it was really cool. That was like a proper company where I actually got to design stuff. So did that for 6 months overseas. Anyway, I come back and I've got to finish my degree, and I have to do my thesis. You have to do like a thesis at the end, which is like a dissertation. It's got all these different names.
It's like a big thing that kind of sums up all of your work you've done today, pretty much. Yeah, cool.
And I'm like, I'm dreading this thing. It's like this huge report you got to do. And the thing about uni that I worked out was that if I'm not interested in it, I'm not going to put effort into it. If I'm not passionate about it, which is that's exactly how it works. And I kind of didn't realize. I always thought, I mustn't be that smart, or I mustn't be that motivated or hardworking, which was not true. Which is absolutely not true.
These are all things that I've said to myself at one point when going through my degrees. Like the last year, I'm just like, I am beating my head against this wall, and I'm like, maybe I'm just not. Maybe I'm just like, maybe I should just go work. I don't know, somewhere that doesn't require a degree. I don't know. This is not working for me. Yeah,
exactly. So I was like, so the thesis, and you got to find a supervisor, and the hard part is you got to pick a topic. You can pick your own topic, and I was kind of like, oh, all the topics are like measuring the fluid flow of a tube, and like you're like, that sounds so miserable. Like how it's going to be so hard just to write 100,000 words, whatever. 100,000, 10,000, I don't know. It was a lot of words.
A lot of words.
A lot of words. Anyway, I had this. At the same time, I always come up with like random ideas. And I had this idea for like a bicycle safety device thing, which is not related necessarily to mechanical engineering, but I guess it's engineering because it's problem solving and all that stuff. Anyway, I was like, screw it. I'm going to do my thesis on this idea, like this safety device thing, and maybe like make a prototype and then like test it. And then it could be fun. Like I get to try and make this thing and write a report on it. So anyway, I did that. And as I was doing it, I started to really get into it because I'm like researching it and I'm like testing it. I'm working out different ways to do it. And then when I'm writing the report, it's easy because I've got all this stuff to talk about because I'm like, oh yeah, this didn't work because I tried this and this and this. So,
and you're invested in it. You're like, it's an idea.
Yeah, I'm invested in it because it's mine. It's my idea.
Yes.
And I'm like, it was like my thing. So I was like, this is great. Like instead of working on someone else's crappy project or something I don't want to do, I'm doing something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got to the end of uni and I ended up like getting like the highest mark
all right
out of anybody for this, for this thing. And I was like, and it kind of, it sort of blew my mind, the fact that it meant that I could, like if I put my mind to it, I can do whatever I want. If I'm passionate about it, I'll put the work in and I'll make it really good. And then I the next year I got a message from the uni. They were like, we'll submit your thesis to Engineers Australia. And I was like, yeah, sure, like whatever, do what you want, cool. Anyway, I ended up becoming the Australian engineering student of the year out of all the unis for this thing, and I was like, what is going on? This is ridiculous. This is actually ridiculous. So I won this thing, and the whole time I was like, I wasn't trying, but I wasn't expecting to win these like, I won a couple of prizes, and there were other uni students who'd been like the real nerdy ones who like, they definitely wanted these prizes like all through uni. They'd be like, I want the I can't remember what it's called, the Ian Chappell or something Innovation Award. They were like going for that one because that's the one award you can get. Only one person can get that award.
And you got it.
And I got it. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then, so for this Australian Engineering Student of the Year award, they said, we're having an awards ceremony at the New South Wales Parliament House. We want you to come and accept the award. And this was at the point when this was a year later, I'd already decided I wanted to do music. I'd already kind of like moved on from my thesis. I did it so long ago. But they were like, come to the Parliament House. We've got the chief scientist that's going to give you the award and this and this. And I was kind of like, oh, I feel like I have to go. Because there was prize money as well. And I was like, this is crazy. But I kind of felt like I needed to go. You get a prize, you've got to turn up. You know what I mean? Even though I wasn't doing engineering anymore. And so I went with my dad and my sister to this awards night, and my dad's an engineer and he was loving it. He like knew people and was like this and this and this. And and it kind of made me realize if I wanted a job in engineering, I could have probably had my pick because I was on the resume, I probably had the best thing you can have at the top. Even though if you looked at my GPA, it's pretty crap, and all my marks pretty crap, but I got a big award at the end. So it's like, it's pretty good. So I went to this thing and I had the CEO chatting to the CEO of Oricon. There's a company called Oricon. It's like a really big company. And Dad's like, oh, I should chat to him, like kind of get a good job. Anyway, I had a chat to the CEO of Oricon and I asked him if he wanted any live music at his Christmas party and gave him my music business card. And that was a nice little point when I was like, at that point, it had already been a year. I'd already decided I was going to do music.
Yeah.
And it was nice to I kind of got the award and like, I was chatting to people and I was like, if you need music, I'm not actually doing engineering right now. But a lot of people at that event, when I told them I'm doing music, were like, that's amazing, which is really cool. They weren't like, no, you should come. They were all like a bit, meeting some people, they're like, do that, that's what you should do.
I've also really cool. Spoken to a few of UA's friends who've gone on to become engineers, and I can imagine that the sentiment will be quite similar. It's like, I think you've made the right choice there.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the main thing. It was working out. One of the things that I guess that I want to convey to people is that when I was in school, I didn't think what I'm doing now is a job. No one tells you this is a job.
Yeah.
No one tells you that music's a job. No one really says, oh, you can be. People don't really understand. You can be a music producer. People just say, like, the scale for artists is super famous, global sensation. People think that's success. And then anything else is not success. But all these jobs in the middle, like being a mixing engineer, music producer, you could be a music teacher. There's heaps of jobs in music that, I don't know, they just weren't like, I didn't realize they really existed when I started uni.
And there's also the addition of stuff like Twitch, which I'm sure we'll get onto later, which is kind of given more depth in terms of what is possible and what isn't possible. Yeah,
exactly. Like with Twitch, you can take it like in which direction you want. You actually have so many options, and I think it's hard because obviously as you grow up, you're always talking to the older generation, and these things weren't around when they grew up. They don't see the potential in what you can do and how you can make a career out of these things. They just see it as no, you've got to get a job for a big company that pays super.
Stay there for 20 years,
does its thing, and you're going to be good.
Rise up the ranks,
Yeah.
But I'm really curious to hear though. So getting to the point where you finished your degree, what were you thinking at that point? Like, I guess, did you make the decision to do music at the time of graduating, or did you try and look for work at that point?
Um. Oh, it was a bit of a weird order because since I had done those 2 internships, I had kind of worked in a couple of jobs.
Yeah.
And this job I was working for in the UK, he actually said to me, if you want a job, like you've got one here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I got that award and I was kind of like, oh, well, I guess I could probably, pick a job. And I kind of thought, I did think about the idea of like, what do I want to do? And do I want to get a job to save money to then do what I want to do? Or do I want to kind of like just throw myself in the deep end and just kind of like wing it? Which is sort of what I went for. And the same thing that like, I was like, I've got the idea of what I want to do. And I know that that's always been like, obviously as a musician, money is going to be a stress. You got to pay your rent. You got to do all this stuff. It's unstable. It's this and this and this. But I've always known from then that if I need an extra gig or if I can't pay my bills, I'm going to get my guitar and my little amp and I'm going to go back to that tunnel and sit in there and busk and like I can like physically just work to make it with this. And I know I've got the work ethic that I'm not just going to like lounge around and not do the thing. Cause there's a bit of a stigma for musicians. We get a bit of a bad rap. Apparently we don't shower and we have no money. Who's saying this? It's not true. I shower twice a day.
Damn, you heard it here first, guys. Southey is clean.
But yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know, people just like it's tricky, but like if it's what you want to do, it's like any job. You put your time and put your work into it and you can, there's so many different, it's tricky because it's not like you can't necessarily just do one thing in music.
No.
To make money, you've got to kind of do a bunch of things, which is great. If you're someone like me who's just gets bored easily, you one week you're doing Twitch, then you're doing a gig, then you're trying to produce music, then you're making an artwork and doing all this stuff. But
one thing I find that is really interesting that you brought up though is this idea where if you are doing something that you aren't personally invested in, you find it really hard to start. I feel like I'm very similar in the respects where I haven't known a side of myself that was motivated and driven until I started doing this Twitch music thing where
amazing.
I needed to actually just have the work ethic to make it work, because there's no way you can juggle streaming, practicing, doing this podcast thing, and you also have podcasts as well. Like, what was the difference for you, I guess, going from university where you're kind of doing something you're not interested in, but then actually diving straight into this music thing where you have to do everything, considerably more work, but like, what was the difference like for you in your head?
It's definitely hard. Doing this is like, I often look at a good 9 to 5 these days and I'm like, oh God, that'd be nice. Like that'd be comfy, because you have to like, I feel when you work for yourself, and all self-employed people will know this, it's like you got to have motivation, because if you stop, everything stops. If you're working in a 9 to 5 in an office with a bit of like a hustle, a bit of like, sometimes if I go into a session, and that's why it's great to collaborate with people as well, is because it keeps you going. Before you know it, you can get distracted, and then everything can just stop. And that's why like, turning up somewhere at 9 and finishing at 5 every day, that level of routine in your life can really help with like your productivity. But I've definitely found it like really hard to like, I find what I'm doing now, I think maybe to an outside observer, moving to music from engineering might seem like a easy path. Maybe that might be like what my parents thought. Oh, he just doesn't want to work hard, he wants to be a musician. But honestly, this is so much harder than like in my mind than like, just you could go to a job and you could just do your job and then you can switch it off. This is harder, but like I love this too, so I'm putting so much more work into it as well. Have
you seen the joke where it's like, I quit my 9 to 5 job working 40 hours a week to work like 60 hours a week working for myself? That's how I feel sometimes. Yeah,
24 hours a day. Yeah, you screw the 9 to 5, and then you go home and literally I work. And I need to get better at like timing my days and how much work I'm doing, because sometimes, actually yesterday, I felt like I didn't get done what I wanted to get done, and then I'm trying to get into journaling. I'm really bad at it, but I started writing down. I was like, what did I do today? And I started writing it down. I did like so many things. At one point I was like putting air in my tires on my car and like doing this thing. And then I was like editing videos for like our podcast. And then I was doing something else. And then I was like on a call to someone. And then I was like and I was just like, by the end of the day, I'm like, oh, how did I was, what else did I eat today? Like it adds up.
There has to be a phenomenon for that, because I experienced the same thing. It's just like you look back, and it's like, I feel like I did nothing, but then if I actually spend a little bit of thought actually thinking back on it, it's actually, I didn't eat. I didn't have any food.
Yeah.
So the thing I'm most curious about though, is how did you discover, so actually, wait, before we go to Twitch, how, you dove in at the deep end, you really kind of like threw yourself into this kind of music lifestyle. Like, how did it go leading up? Because I imagine there were probably a few years of just doing full-time gigs before you discovered Twitch and the pandemic happened and all that stuff. What was it like?
I'm trying to remember back now. So it was 2018 was the year I went full-time music, I think.
Yeah.
Full-time music 2018.
So it wasn't that long between like going full-time and COVID?
No, not really. Probably, like a couple years. Yeah. A couple years of full-time gigs. And that was going pretty well. So I kind of had my gigs, and then I was trying to work on some original stuff as well at the same time. And I think I was trying to get my head around where I wanted to go with it. Because after doing it full-time for a few years, there's a point when you're playing other people's songs and covers that you're kind of like, I love this, but do I want to do this? Like, the same thing. Like, there's so many ways you can go with it, but as soon as you lose that kind of like the drive, or there was a point when I'm like, I'm comfortable now. I'm at this level where I have my sets and I do my thing. You need that push. And there's a thing that happens. I feel like there's these two things that you kind of need as a musician. One of them is, they both kind of like cancel each other out. One of them is you look at another musician and you sort of pull that face and you go, and you kind of hate them because they're really good. And it gives you this like, it like pisses you off, but it's amazing because it gives you this urge to get better, because you're like,
fire in your stomach, right?
Someone better than me. There's always someone better than me all the time. And of course there is, because it just resets the ceiling and you're like, okay, well now I'm working to that. Yeah. Like, okay, fine. I thought I just got there, but then you see someone else who plays something, and you see someone on Twitch, and you're like, I thought I could live loop, but now I've just seen autopilot stream for the first time, and then you're just like, oh man. Okay. So then it resets your level, and then but what it does is it keeps you moving, which is really, really good, and that's fantastic, because that keeps the fire in your belly and keeps you improving all the time, so you don't get too comfy. But then the other side is, if you start doing that, there's another thing, which is you start to improve and not recognize any of your like success. There's like the other end of the stick. And so as you kind of go, you're always looking back, because in that first mindset, you look back at your old content and you go, oh God, why did I put that out? That's so terrible. But that's only because you've improved. So that's great. That shows that you've improved. But you have to get past that point of, if you're too critical, you never put anything out. So you have to throw stuff out that you know is not good. And sometimes I'll make something like a video, and I swear in the 5 minutes since I filmed it, edited it, and now I'm watching it again, I'm already like, I'm better than that. Why would I put that out? I can make something better. But like, no, you can't. It's in the past. Put it out, move on. It's like this weird cycle of like, you have to let it go, but then you've also got to be inspired to work harder and get better. But you've also got to appreciate your own skills. It's like this weird mental struggle.
I watched a really interesting interview of Jack Conte recently, where he talks about the mindset of basically publishing versus doing. So it's the mindset of going into something where you know that this is going to be a thing that you're going to put out. So you're not going to spend, hours like nitpicking everything and trying to make it perfect. It's like entering with a mindset of publishing versus entering with a mindset of, doing it for yourself. Like, I'm recording a song for me. Like, I want to make it as good as I can be, because that's something that I'm struggling with a lot, with just putting stuff out and not just like overanalyzing it all.
No, it's like you're much better off putting out more stuff that's not as good than putting out just like, I don't know, just like in your whole lifetime,
perfect
putting out
thing.
one song, putting out a perfect thing, which is never, like that's not really, and that's not real either. Like, it's kind of, people are gonna improve when you see that other person who you look at them and you think, oh, but they do it so well. It's like, well, they've put the crap stuff out too. They might have taken it down or whatever, but like everyone's gone through this trajectory at some point.
Everyone's got the skeleton.
They couldn't just
somewhere.
wake up and do this. Yeah, exactly. If that person is like that brilliant, maybe they were just in a dark room for 2 years just practicing, and like they didn't show anybody any of that, and then they've just popped out. And sure, there's a few like freaks of nature who just like their brains can just do things incredibly in certain ways, but like everyone's got their own skills and ways of doing it, Yeah.
Something we're going to come back to, because I'm going to we're going to put a flag in the conversation here. We're going to come back to it because I think Twitch is really interesting, because you are exposed to a lot of people every day who are like in many different ways better than us at something. And it's like sometimes it's like a little bit of a mental gymnastics to try and like, stop yourself from kind of comparing all the time yourself to other musicians. But COVID happened. You are a musician who's very used to gigging, doing relatively well. What happened? Like, how did you, like, what was the steps COVID happened and then you went on Twitch?
First COVID, because I only went on Twitch in the second Sydney lockdown. So with the initial COVID, and what did I do in the first one? I think I kind of of course COVID comes in, all the gigs go, and I still remember that week when you get the emails, and it was just like it was the first things to go as soon as that came in. Emails from all my venues I play at, gigs cancelled till further notice, and you're just like, doosh, income stream 1 from this place gone. Oh wait, next one gone, next one gone, and they just cancelled out. And this was before everything had fully locked down as well. Yeah, just because live music is just, people say, well, we can't have that. First out the door, and then I was quite lucky at the first one because I was actually living at home at the time. Okay, so I was very fortunate that I could just stop spending money. And I wasn't earning any money, and I was okay. I was going to break even. I was like, this is okay. So I was very lucky about that. And then I ended up sort of just spinning it to like, while I was gigging, I'm getting busy. I'm doing so many things. I'm trying to have a social life. I hadn't spent much time on my actual music. Yeah. Like writing and recording, all this stuff I've just wanted to do, but it just gets, because it's not necessarily urgent today. It doesn't pay the bills this week and doesn't do that this week. It's so easy to push it down the line. So it kept getting pushed on. And then COVID came, and I'm like, I think for a lot of artists, we're all just like, well, here we go. You wanted, in your mind, you wanted time to do this, which was never going to come, but somehow it's here. Like somehow you can't work. You can't do your regular
You've been
things.
gifted.
You're stuck at home. You've been gifted like this thing, which no one has, which just doesn't come in life, because life just keeps going. And somehow life has stopped. And we're stocking up on like food and stuff. It was nuts. So I started doing a bit more of that sort of music stuff. At the same time, just regular COVID stuff like everyone else, just walking around aimlessly around. Everyone's up at the local parks. No one goes to these parks, and suddenly these parks are like the most popular places on the planet. Yeah. And then so that first one kind of came and went, and then gigs started to come back, and then we sort of kept going.
I have to ask though, was the first lockdown where you wrote Run River, or is that later on?
No, I actually wrote Run River ages ago, a long time ago. I'm trying to think what year it was. It was actually a long time ago, and there's been a couple versions of that song. And weirdly, I realized this the other day. I actually wrote it in this room that I'm in now.
Oh,
which is really weird. Yeah, really weird. I was just like, oh, actually, I think this is where I wrote that song. And that song was one of those ones. It was like people always say this. It just came to me, but it was literally like a I wanted to write a chorus that wasn't like all the other choruses I was writing. There were too much going on. I was like, it's got to be simple. Like, what if I just repeat words and Run River? like I was just like, I'm just gonna like strip it down to just like a couple of words, and then I just like wrote the chorus. I was like, oh, yeah, that's all right, and then that was just it. And I just had that song, 4 chords, very simple song.
And now it has 500,000 plays
yeah,
on like
yeah,
what?
yeah.
I mean, that's obviously a recent milestone. Like, what was going through your mind when when you got there?
When I hit 500,000, the main thing that was going through my mind was the fact that I'm like, why don't I feel more like
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so weird with all these milestones, especially with numbers. You put them in your head, but then by the time a lot of people do the thing where since you in some ways you might know it's coming and you work for it for a long time, by the time you finally get there, you've already processed the achievement.
You
and then you already
moved,
and then you've already just reset the bar before you even got there, which is not fair. You're kind of like you're like a dog with a stick with like a carrot. Is that what they say? No, what eats the carrot? Horse.
I dog with it. I think that's like saying dog with a carrot. Like just run
it's like that
constantly.
But then you're doing it to yourself. It's really weird. And obviously it was absolutely amazing to hit 500,000. But it's really weird how you kind of your perspective changes as that changes when you really want something as well. But I'm really proud of that song because that song I've released that song twice before.
Really?
Technically, yeah. That song's been on Spotify twice before, and the first time I released it was back in 2015 under my name Tom Southey.
Yeah. On
Spotify, and it didn't crack 1,000 streams. It sounded quite different to the way it sounded now because I re-recorded it.
But you've done all that yourself, right? Basically, both versions were self-produced.
Yep.
Amazing.
And then I released a little EP which I made myself, which is like a bunch of little songs which you can still buy on my Bandcamp, and that's actually got the second version of Run River, which was pretty much the first version. Plus, I fixed up a couple of things I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
And then the current version, which is the one everyone would know on Spotify, is it's interesting because each time I've done that, I've obviously got so much better at music production.
Yeah.
You can really like hear it and see.
Oh, well, I mean, I've always thought your production was top notch from the beginning, but it's actually really interesting that you say that you've released it twice. Now that kind of segues really perfectly into Twitch. How much of an impact do you think Twitch has had on your life since you've started streaming? Yeah,
it's really. I was thinking the other day. I had a I kind of love these things. The Instagram recaps.
Yeah.
Instagram rips off everything, all the apps. They've just got the recap thing, which shows you on this day 4 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and I really like that because that pulls my brain back into it was an on this day 4 years ago or something. And it was me at a gig doing my little camera around the room. And oh my God, I saw my pedal board and it was like 3 things on the ground. And it was the most basic thing. And it just made me realize how it was just another reminder of like how far I've come.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at that now and I'm like, what? I only had those 2 things. And I thought that was so complicated at the time. And I was thinking about that. And I was thinking if I could see myself, it's so hard to do, but if I could flash back 4 years ago and show myself my Twitch setup and what I'm doing, I would blow my mind. I would freaking blow my mind, but I can't. And it's very hard to get back in that you need to kind of try to hop back every now and then to just like appreciate these things as they come and to see how far you've gone. Because you don't realize it when you're working so hard every day. You're spending so much time doing this. By the time you get there, you gotta, it's corny. You gotta look back.
Well,
down the
I mean,
mountain where you've
you
come
basically
from.
just always pretty much looking for the next thing, right? You do one thing,
exactly.
It's just like I'm gonna start this thing. Yeah. How did you find out about Twitch?
I heard one of the reasons I released that little EP.
Yep.
Of I think there was 6 or 7 songs on it, and then the next year, this was just before the second lockdown. A guy called Sam got in touch with me, and he was interested in starting his own little label up called Peach and Sons, and he got in touch with me and was like, "Hey man, like I heard your EP, and like I really like it, like, and this is what I'm trying to start a label." And you've got like some really good music, which isn't getting this. So like, I think I could help you in this way. And like, we could work together and we could do this. And he was the one who said, I think of those songs, Run River's probably your best song, and it's probably like, and I kind of agreed with him on that, and I was like, I think that indie folky kind of sad song is like that's the kind of music I find easiest to write.
Yeah,
writing the other mix of rock and stuff, like I love that stuff, but I don't think it's kind of maybe where my songwriting is going to go. So he said, if you're keen, let's kind of like what if we did a re-release of it, did some work into it, come up with a bit of a press package, you know, we can get some press shots, and that's when I rebranded to Southey. And then so we started getting that going, and it was really great to work with someone else besides me. So we kept bouncing ideas off each other, and we could kind of work together on something, which was really awesome. So that gave me a lot of like energy and motivation to keep this stuff going.
Yeah.
And you get excited about it. If I would send him versions of Run River while I was working on it, and he just text me back and be like, "This is sick," and then that would be like, "This is sick." This is sick. And then I keep working on it. When usually I'd get there, work on it, and I'd be like, I'm sick of this. Like I get sick of it. Yeah. The song. I've heard it so many times, and like I can't. So just having that little bit of like especially since no one in my family is musical.
Yeah.
So even if I showed it to my mum, she'd be like, "Sounds great," and then I'd be like, "Cool." Like that literally doesn't mean anything. I could show you anything, and she just doesn't like get that, you know. So having someone to sort of bounce those ideas off, and then anyway, he linked me a podcast.
Yep.
This was during we'd planned a release date for Run River on Spotify, and we'll come up with all these ideas and how to market it and stuff, and how to just try and get plays on it. We're both new to this, so we're both learning as we're going. And he linked me a podcast. I can't remember what it was called. I linked it to a few friends, and it was someone talking about Twitch music. And there was a line in there, which was something like, I can't remember. There was a few lines that were just really interesting. So I listened to this podcast, and it was just saying, I can't really remember it now, but it was just talking about how people are live streaming music and how they're doing pretty well, and this is what you got to do. And I remember a few things from it, like you've got to stream regularly for at least 3 hours, or at least 2 hours minimum. 2 hours minimum. And you're like, that's a long gig, but I'm kind of like pretty set to do that because I do 3-hour gigs anyway. So I'm like, okay. So anyway, this is podcast, really interesting. And another thing, the stars aligned, and it was lockdown again. So I had the first one where I got to work on my music, and then I've got another one, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I could have never done Twitch or put in enough time to really get it going, I feel like, while working without the lockdown. So I had all this time, nothing to do. And I was going to do a Run River single release gig. We were hoping to book maybe a little venue and sell a few tickets. Don't know who, just friends and family, I guess. Just for the point of doing a release gig. Yeah. And then we were in lockdown. And so Sam sent me this podcast, and he said, why don't you do like a live stream on Twitch? No, we'll do a live stream for a single release live stream on Facebook or something, just as like your gig, because you're in lockdown. You may as well, and try and promote it on your socials or whatever. And then, after listening to the podcast, he said, why don't you just do it on Twitch? Send people there. And I was like, I listened to the podcast thing, and I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. Pretty good. And then so the first stream I did was the Run River release stream. That was my first ever stream. So I was streaming, and I was playing Run River, and then I played the music video that I made, the lyric video, which is on YouTube. I ran that, and I think we lost about 1,000 frames because my computer just I didn't know how to use all this OBS and all this software that went with Twitch and stuff.
It's brave basically going straight into the event after never streaming before, because man, I look back at my first stream, it's like, ooh, I didn't know what I was doing at this point.
Yeah. But I had all the gear. I had like a pretty good camera, which I'd bought for YouTube, which I hadn't been using. I've got a good audio interface, and I've got all this good stuff. So I set up my first stream, did that, and then I think I was talking to him, and I was like, what if, because I think the podcast talked about how you can engage real fans on Twitch. anyway, so then I started doing streaming, I guess, a few times a week just for the first few weeks. And it's really fun because Twitch is like, it has that, it's a lot of it's on gaming, but it has that video game thing about it where it hangs the carrot in front of you.
Yep.
It gives you this little milestone. It's like if you get 3 average viewers and you get these achievements, and if you tick them all off, then you get to the next like level. And I'm like, I want to get to the next level. I've got nothing else to do. So, and this is the game. It ticks the urge. I feel productive.
Yeah.
It's a combination of me feeling productive, and then I'm also like playing this game.
Yeah.
Where I'm trying to like grow this thing because it's quite cool, and it's real people coming in, which you just don't usually get. So that's kind of how I started, and then of course it goes, you know, like you talk to other Twitch streamers, it goes the regular way of after your first few weeks you get a raid, and then your mind is blown when all these people come into your Twitch stream. And then I
think your story is a bit different though. I think.
Well, I guess so. I haven't thought about this for a while actually. I've been so busy. Yeah, I can't actually remember the timeline of it, but I was pretty new to Twitch.
I think because I vividly remember, I think I was one of your first like raidees, as in you raided me.
Yep.
And then I started watching his streams. I'm like, this guy's crazy. I vividly remember your cover of Feel Good Inc. And I'm just like, this is blowing my mind. And I'm like, I was watching you. And then I remember, I think it was about a month. I don't know why I remember this, but I just do. About a month into you streaming, you're like, oh, we're on the front page. And then you had 20,000 people.
Yeah,
watching,
that was insane. That was an insane few weeks. I went from starting on Twitch to a few weeks later. I don't know. I think I just had. It's a mixture of time and place, and I think for me as well, being a gigging musician going straight to Twitch, I had the musical stamina to play for 3 hours. Yeah. I've got the song list. I've got all this stuff, and then when I got onto Twitch, I'm like, well, this all weirdly works. Yeah. Like I feel like I've been training for this my whole life. You know, it was weird. It was very weird. So I did that for a few weeks, and then I got an email from a Twitch staff member saying, "Hey, we're doing a front page promotion thing. Yeah. If you're interested." And I didn't know. Oh, it was a 2-hour slot. I said, we're doing a front page promotion. I got an email from them. We put you on the Twitch, which I guess is like the homepage, and on the little carousel where you can see all the streams spinning around. And so instead of having just a few viewers, you can get up to, I can't remember what you said, like a few thousand viewers. And the thing about Twitch, which is unreal, is that like you gain genuine followers. I worked for years, my whole career up to that point. I think I built up like 500 Instagram followers with my like blood, sweat, and tears at gigs, giving up business cards and like having my sign every gig. 500 followers, and then I did that Twitch front page for the 2-hour slot, and I got 1,000 followers in 2 hours, and it was like. It was a 2-hour. It was I can't remember how many viewers it was, but it was a lot of people. And
it was. I remember it being 20,000. I think I was like blowing. It was stupid amounts of people.
It was stupid. And then so I had that, and that was nuts. So I was on this crazy high of that, and it was just like adrenaline. It's COVID, and I just did a gig to like half a stadium from my room. Like what is it was just like I play gigs to no one. I get paid to play to no one. Usually, and then I'm on Twitch and I'm playing like there was like 20,000 viewers at one point, and then just like that just completely blew my mind, and then obviously on a massive rush, I was doing Twitch a lot at that point. I had nothing else to do, so I was streaming on Twitch a lot, and then they ended up coming back to me and saying, hey, we've got some algorithmic thing we want to test or something on the front page. So we might put you into this like program or whatever, which just means that every time you go live, they said for the next 8 to 10 days, we're going to put you on this front page thing. So like when you go live, there's a very good chance that the algorithm will just put you on the front page and you get a lot of viewers. So that's kind of like, and this is what you got to know, and you don't put anything inappropriate on whatever. They have all their kind of rules. So I was like, awesome. Next 8 to 10 days, I guess I'm streaming every day. You kind of got to. Like if I'm streaming to 1,000 people for an extra 10 minutes compared to 3 people for an hour, it makes much more sense to stream to
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll stream every day. So I streamed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then I got to 8 days and I was like, oh, it might end today. It might not. They said it was going to end. I hadn't heard from them. And then 9 days passed and then 10 days. And then I did the 11th day and then it was still going. And at that point, I'm like, I've been streaming every day. I've been playing music. Like it's quite draining. And I think I went 14 days in a row before I took a break.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, and I felt really guilty taking a break because I'm like, today could be the last day, and then tomorrow I'll go back to just having a few viewers, and I lose all that exposure which I've kind of got. Like I've got this golden ticket for the minute, and like this is the best thing that's happened to my music since forever. So I need to just keep investing time in this.
But at this point, though, weren't you also recording? Because I know we spoke about this. You were recording Leuven at this time as well.
Yes, yeah. So that was the first time I've experienced serious burnout.
Yeah,
I was working in the day, recording the next song.
Oh my god!
And then at the night, I was doing these streams like day after day after day after day. And yeah, burnout's a funny one because you don't realize you have it until you stop, or you try to stop. And then you're like, I remember like sitting downstairs I'll watch a movie. I'll relax. I'll watch a movie. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I can't stop my mind from just like running on like a million things that I need to do and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is not that good. Definitely not that good. Everything was work. It was like, I'd wake up, work, music, this. So yeah, I definitely burnt myself out at that point. But I also blame Twitch for not letting me know when it was going to end, because this went on for like 3 months. I kept thinking it was going to end, and every time I'd go on, it would just keep going. And then after was it 3 months? It was obviously amazing, and like that's how I grew my Twitch following. Was off the back of that front page thing, but they just didn't take me off it. And I was like, did they forget about me? Did they just leave me on there and they've forgotten? I'm like, I don't really want to email them to tell them, because then they might be like, oop, oh yeah, no, we'll turn that off. Sorry, thank you, you know. But then I kind of, towards the end, I was like, okay, I'm ready for this to end, so I don't have to feel guilty about not.
Honestly, man, it's so interesting. 2 episodes ago, I spoke to Universe, who has been on the front page for a year and a half.
Oh wow. Okay.
And like, it's a thing where it's like, I am so thankful for the exposure, but going from 0 to like 20,000 people, and then like mentally dealing with just the increased volume is just so crazy. And just burnout is just the thing. Like, I honestly could not put myself in either of your shoes, and I can't imagine what it would be like.
Yeah.
Just going from, again, 0 or 5 people to then 20,000 people, and dealing with that day after day after day for 3 months. Crazy.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. At the end, I definitely wanted it to end.
Yeah.
Just because as well, you develop a sense, Twitch, as you know, you develop a really strong sense of community.
Yeah.
And when you're on the front page, you get a lot of people just coming in and spamming stuff, and it kind of ruins a bit of the
vibe, right?
The chat, the vibe in the chat between the people, because people don't necessarily want to speak to each other as much because you've just got a lot of randoms coming in. It's kind of like, I think I always like comparing Twitch to like, if you imagined putting it in like a mental live show, and then imagine if you're in a live show and there's just like crowds of people walking in and walking out and walking in and walking out.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, the feel is just off. People are moving around, but when it's a tight knit community of people that you know and you recognize their faces, and every time you go to a gig, you're like, oh hey, that's so and so and that's so and so, and it's like a really nice vibe. Everyone kind of knows how it works. Over time you start to feel it a bit, which I'm really grateful for. And like, I'd be happy, Twitch, if you're watching this, chuck me back on there for a little bit. But
just
it's kind of like just a short bit. No, it's nice because it gives you a little boost. It does bring in new people, and it's great to have new people, especially when you're playing the same songs and a lot of the same music. You want new people to hear it, because that's kind of the point of music as well, is so people can sort of hear you for the first time. That's one of the best bits about being a musician. But yeah, it's at the same time, it can be a lot. Yeah.
So what were you thinking of in terms of Southey, the gigging musician, gone into lockdown, all of a sudden, just didn't really think much of Twitch, going to use it to promote your new song, Run River. And then out of nowhere comes this, like you said, golden ticket opportunity that has given you access to an audience that is crazy. How did this reframe your mind in terms of where you thought your direction was going to go as a musician, as I guess now a content creator? Like, what did you see for yourself in the future from that specific point, middle of the front page marathon?
That's a tricky question. It's very hard because I find like I guess your mindset just keeps changing over time.
Yep.
I guess it was really cool to have something. One of the best things that I found originally was I was actually when I started doing Twitch, I was looking for like a part-time job that I could do from home because when the lockdowns kept happening and the work kept going, I was like, I can't just be a gigging musician, because if these things happen, which they probably will continue to happen more in the future, I'm done. As soon as these venues closes, I'm out of work. I'm making no money. I need something from home. I was going to, after I made the Run River lyric video, I was like, I'm good at that. Maybe I can do some video editing work on Fiverr kind of thing, which is not my skill set, but I'm like, I can do it from my computer from home. And then Twitch came along, and then suddenly I'm working from my own space in my own time, making some money in my own studio. So it definitely changed my perspective of the fact that you could then work. It opened my mind in terms of like freedom as a musician. Because I'm like, I think before that I'm constrained to, I need to be near that bar, or I need to be here and to be able to make money because I have to do A, B, and C. Yep. But when I had Twitch, I was like, oh, I would kind of like to live out on like a farm in like with space and good internet.
Yeah.
Which you don't really get at farms in Australia, but wouldn't that be great? And then you could do your work. It gives you options when usually if you wanted to go and live out of the city, you're done. Well, not necessarily, unless you're releasing big music and you've got all this stuff, which you can do that later in your life. But Twitch kind of means, I could move. I could get a van and some 5G internet and, travel around Australia, and I could do like live streams from my phone and then tour in cities. It's another avenue, like a bit more freedom that you can carry with you, and you're your own boss. So you can kind of, you can kind of move a bit more freely in this music space. And you can also, your community aren't just there for your music necessarily, they're there for you. So you can actually do more of what you want to do. And you can turn it into, instead of just doing music, you could, it's great for me because I love coming up with weird ideas and stuff, but like you could turn your stream into whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much of an opportunity it's just unlocked in terms of not only music, but just doing things that you have always thought about. Be like, oh, would people really be interested in that? So you've just finished this marathon run on the front page, and then Australia starts to open up again and gigs start to come back. One thing that I found really interesting, and I think you are, out of probably the conversations I've had so far, you are probably the only kind of actively gigging musician I've spoken to. How do you grapple this idea where you need to not only do gigs, probably 2 to 3 times a week, or maybe 1 to 2, and also stream music as well? So play the same stuff. Like I struggle a lot with, this idea where I'm streaming 3 times a week, but I'm also trying to record music as well. So I'm like, I really have to conserve my voice and really be tactical about when I use it. How does that tie in with actually doing live gigs and streaming at the same time?
Yeah. That was another. So after everything opened up again, everything changed again. Yeah. And you immediately notice on Twitch a lot of the gigging musicians drop off because they were they moved their gigs to Twitch and then they moved back. Maintaining the thing that's hard about Twitch is you've got to be regular.
Yeah.
Which I'm not right now. I'm sorry, everyone. You've got to be regular, but I think after lockdown, I wanted to do more Twitch than gigs. That was sort of my plan, to do more Twitch than gigs. And it kept, my model in my mind kept changing. And I was like, no, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to do mainly Twitch, and I'll have 1 gig a week. And that will kind of help me cover my rent as like a baseline. Because since Twitch is, I've grown up doing busking, and money is like this. Oh, smack my. Money is like, one day you might make a lot, one day you might make nothing. You just cannot. It's a very hard thing to do, but you have to not let that. You have to not think about it, which is a very difficult thing to do. If you step back and look at it all monthly and over a few years, you'd be like, actually, this is pretty good. You know, like I'm getting by. It seems stable because you've taken the average. But day to day, when you've sat there for 6 hours and you make no money, you're just kind of like, oh, I could have done a gig tonight and I would have had cash in my hand. And then it's hard when you've got to pay bills and stuff, you know? So juggling that became quite tricky. So I started doing Twitch with the 1 gig. And then I found myself after a few weeks feeling like stressed about money after a bit, just because Twitch is going to be up and down and you just don't know how it's going to work. And I don't like streaming thinking about money. I just want to stream and I want to play my music and I just want it to be about the music. I don't want to be wondering, oh, am I going to do all right today or not? Because you definitely do get a bit of a buzz when you do all right. You're like, hey, I did pretty well today. Like, you know, when you kind of, after you go busking and you look in your case, you're like, cool. You know, you kind of have that feeling. But you really need to, it's really hard to disconnect yourself from that because it's like, it's almost like a measure on yourself, even though it's not, even though it's completely random in so many ways. You just have to stick with it. But my original model was Twitch, 1 gig on the weekend. After a bit, I quickly swapped that to, you know what, I'll do 2, maybe 3 gigs. Then I'm set. Then I'll stream and I don't have to worry about money. I can stream my own music and I don't have to think about money at all. If I make no money, who cares? I'll just have a good time. It'll reflect. People will enjoy it more because they'll know I'm having a good time. They're having a good time. I'm not just like slogging over this. That was kind of how I flipped it. That sort of made a bit more sense as my mind kind of changed. But then by doing that as well, at the same time, you're talking about trying to do 2 to 3 streams a week, plus trying to do 2 to 3 gigs a week. You're talking, you know, like a lot of hours of singing, and it's a lot more you would do if you were doing just streaming or just Twitch. And it's hard to service both. So I've sort of, more recently, it's evolved because it's had to, into I'm live streaming quite a few of my live gigs. So if people want to tune into those and hear me just like play some songs and have a jam, I can sort of, I'm a bit limited, but I can still talk to the chat in between songs a bit and stuff. And that way, that works really well because I'm still turning up for the Twitch people and I'm ticking off a gig. So I'm kind of ticking off both at the same time. And it just halves the number of hours that I'm doing music, because then what happens is by the time Monday comes around, this is the thing that's always happened to me, is I've always done gigs. I don't pick up my guitar and play it for fun, ever, because I'm playing 10 hours a week of guitar. The last freaking thing I want to do is pick up that guitar. My fingers are sore. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to sing. And people go, oh, why don't you sing? Let's go to karaoke. And I'm like, no, I hate karaoke. And I do love singing and I do love playing. But when you're a gigging musician, I think about, you see these superstars on their tours and they do 10 nights in a row. And you're like, that's crazy. But like, it's not that crazy considering what I know some of these musicians do, you know, or what some of these musicians have done in subathons. It's incredible, the stamina musicians have. And I think it's something you build up over time, being able to sing. When I was on the front page, it's probably stupid, but I did some, 7-hour singing streams. I don't know how many songs I played, but like I got to the end of it and I was done. 7 hours. When there's 5,000 viewers though, you're like, oh, I'll do
Guess I
one
can
more
keep going.
song.
Yeah,
I can do one more
pushes.
song. And then you're like on this marathon. But it's a heck of a lot. If you go to a show, they're not going to play for anywhere near that, let alone multiple days a week. So you get a bit of, and of course you do. You don't really think about it, but you get a level of fatigue of just like music. I don't know what the word is, but pretty much it's very hard to write music and be creative with music if you're doing it so much every week.
Yeah.
So I'm working on music now, and I'm trying to balance Twitch and gigs and put out new music at the same time. But in doing that, I have to just cut everything back, because otherwise there's no room for me to think about. I just want to take like the other day I had a gig. I hadn't played a gig in 7 days.
Yeah.
I hadn't streamed, which is like I didn't realize that's the longest I've probably been in like 6 months between playing gigs. And for a lot of people, I keep meeting musicians. I played a gig the other day. It's my first gig since lockdown. And I'm like, what? I must have done like 500 gigs at least in between that, which blows my mind. But when I had that 7-day gap, I was playing at my regular gig at the Diddy, and I had heaps of fun. And I was like, I love this. And it was because I just I had this break where I'd sort of maybe just had like a little break and forgotten what it was like to do. And I was just kind of...
You had space. You had time to rest. You had time to relax.
Yeah, in between it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, that at the moment, that's one of the hardest things, is because since it's my job, which I'm so lucky for, that I don't have to have... I'm not working at Starbucks to pay the bills.
Yeah.
In some ways, I almost need that job at Starbucks to pay the bills, because then I would have the space I need to then write more and produce more. And since I'm doing all this music at once, it does kind of block each other. They block each other out a little bit. So finding balance is really tricky. At the moment, I'm trying to work out how to do that. And I think for me, it might be booking more weddings.
Yeah.
So I can charge more money.
Yeah.
So then, not because I want to make more money, but just so I can play less. Instead of doing 2 gigs, I can do 1 gig. And that will just get me back a bit more spare time to work on original stuff and kind of get that.
Is that also the reason why you came up with, you and Alex Hurt came up with Musos, was to give you guys more opportunity to make content that wasn't necessarily just you singing or playing guitar or producing something?
I think so. I think one of the parts of it definitely was that we both agreed we do not want to talk about not talk about music. We both love talking about music, but we need a break, and we can't necessarily add more stuff into our week. So we were kind of thinking of making it had to be fun.
Yeah.
And it had to be something different. Otherwise, it was just going to add to taking away from everything else we were kind of doing. So that's where that's kind of come from. But then again, there's a lot of work in the, I'm kind of like, there's many moments where I'm like, whew, this is another thing. Why did I pick up another job, another part-time job? Because when you add up, you've got a gigging, which is for a lot of people, that's a job. Twitch, for a lot of people, that's a job. Making a podcast, that's a job. Like you're producing, editing, social media marketing yourself, everything, music production, that's a job. Like there's a whole, by the end of it. So when people ask, like looping back to the beginning, like my mum and dad's friends, oh, you do music, oh, cool. Like having to explain to them. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I've just got like 6 jobs. Because that's what it's like. It's like I've got 6 part-time jobs. It's very hard to explain what you do overall. But these days it's great because you get to do a bit of everything. I feel like no 2 days are going to be the same. You get to collaborate with great people. Like there's so much going on, but at the same time, it's a lot of stuff to kind of juggle.
When you think about that, then what advice? Firstly, would you recommend this to other musicians who are thinking about going down this route? And what would you say to someone who's like, oh yeah, like I'm thinking about streaming on Twitch as a musician?
I definitely recommend it. It's obviously Twitch you can do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got to be regular. There's a few things you need to do, like put time into it, like do some longer streams. of at least 2 hours per stream, like minimum. It can't be anything under, I guess, because your viewers build up over time. So you need at least 2 hours to build some viewers. Yeah, you just get like a lot more freedom. So I guess you could work it into, you have to work out how it's going to work for you in that way and how it's going to fit into your life. You might be a music producer, or you might want to get better at music production and you've realized you can stream it at the same time. You might want to learn, you might just want to create beats. If you can, I think one of the things that I've kind of got to, if you can take a couple of things, like for a while I was doing music production streams, coming up with ideas. If you can take an idea of something you're already doing and then you already want to do, and then you can get Twitch and you can put them together so you can live stream yourself learning or improving. That's a really good way to do it, because then if you make no money or you do whatever and no one comes in, whatever, you're still doing what you want to do and it's keeping you accountable. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out live streaming on Twitch for sure, especially if you want to like engage some fans. And yeah, it's definitely the place to do it. And the thing I say the most to people is, a lot of people ask me, especially when I was doing Twitch and I was getting lots of front page viewers, suddenly I got a lot of interest from friends who do music who were like, what do what's what's going on here? What's this thing? What's this thing called Twitch? What happened? You had viewers? T-Pain? What's going on? People start asking like questions like that. But some musicians just want like answers necessarily. They just want to know, how much money do you make? What's this? Yeah. What's this? What's this? All these like measurable things. But a lot of them don't spend any time actually on the platform seeing what it's about. So I'd recommend, if you are actually interested in doing it, spend some time on Twitch in the music section watching some streamers, like, because they're all completely different. And a lot of people open up Twitch, click on one thing and go, oh, this is not for me. This is weird. And they close Twitch. But that's because that's that person's channel. Like, they can do whatever they want. You can do whatever you want, but definitely just click through all the different streamers in the music category and have a look what people are doing, because you can turn it into whatever you want. You don't have to do what other people are doing on there either, which is really interesting and like powerful. I feel like you can, curate
Very
it
strong
yourself.
Bit of advice. 100%. Completely agree. Completely agree, dude. Coming up to the end of this episode, dude, you have been such an amazing guest.
Mate, thank you for having me on.
Dude. But I'm curious to hear though, in what do you have planned for, I guess, the next 3 to 5? Standard interview question. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? Like, what does the future of, I guess, this space look like for Tom Southey?
Oh, that's a hard question. I need to do some vision boards and goals and things properly. My goal is to. It's so hard to do, but you've got to break out of your own. For me, I'm like a captive of my own brain or whatever. But like, you hold yourself back. I need to release more music. I really want to release more music, and it's the same thing. It's hard to release music. You've got to just get in that, like you said, the publishing mentality of just doing it and putting it out and doing it and putting it out. And I actually heard a podcast the other day, and there was a producer on there who worked with Freddie Mercury and Bowie and stuff. And it was kind of sad. And he was saying how like he doesn't listen to any of those songs that they recorded because he only hears the flaws. And I get that. Yeah. I get that so much. I listen to songs and I think that all the time. I listen to Run River and I'd hear all these flaws in it. Somehow over time I've forgotten what they were, which is really good. I'm so happy I could listen to that song and I'm like, this is all right. I'm not hearing that one thing that sticks out. But he was saying he would hear the things that sticks out even years later and he still wouldn't really appreciate it. But the reality is no one cares. You've probably got 100,000 people listening to that song drunk in a bar right now screaming the words who just don't hear the fact that the snare was too choppy or like something. They don't hear it. That's the thing. So you've got to like trying to work out, for me, I'm trying to like let go of a lot of that and just get more music out because I know I can make good music. And I mean, your Spotify plays kind of show that you make good music, right, dude? Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. And I'm like, why have I got 2 songs on there? I need more than 2 songs. People go click, oh, that's good. Oh, that's all right. And they're like, oh, that's it. So I'm like, I need to get more music out. That's definitely one of my goals. I want to book some of my own shows, live shows.
Cool.
Because I've done hundreds and hundreds of gigs playing covers and in places where people don't really listen.
Yeah.
Twitch is amazing because everyone on Twitch actually listens to you, which is nuts. That kind of blows my mind.
It's
that people
crazy,
are like
isn't it? Yeah.
actually listening, which is really special. One of my goals has always been, I want to book my own show and I want it to be dead quiet because there's something about that playing to a room when they're like actively listening. Twitch is like that, but then Twitch is like, you might not be quiet. You just don't have a microphone connected to my screen, you know? And the same thing on Twitch, people lurk and they might not actually be listening. So you don't always know, but playing to a room where the audience is dead quiet is something that I really want to do more of. And also I'd like to play on a big stage just because I think big speakers would be cool. You know, I just want to play like on a big sound system, like loud. They're 2 goals that I've always sort of had.
Yeah.
But yeah, building up my original music a bit more, releasing some new stuff. I've got a few songs in the works that are almost there. I kind of just need like a bit of a push to do it. Like
another 2-week lockdown.
A lockdown would be pretty good. But then again, I don't need it. I can get it out. I can do it. I just need to set myself some deadlines. And it's hard. It's all my way of thinking as well. Like it's the same thing. I know I can make it better, so I'm going to keep working on it.
Yeah.
But there's a point when that's why I need just like a publisher's deadline to just say that's it. Move on to the next one.
It's out.
That's it. So
be free, my child.
Exactly.
And is there anything that you're working on? I guess that's coming out in the short term that you want to shout out?
Yeah. I've got a song. The next song coming out is called Someday, which you might have heard if you were in some of my music production streams end of last year. It's funny to say that, like, it's actually, that song's been around for a little bit now because I was working on that quite a long time ago. So that really needs finished off. Yeah, I've got a song called Someday, which is going to be coming out. It's my next single. And then there's a few bits and pieces after that. But you can tune into my streams. And then I've also been doing, on Bluelist TV, I've been doing like a music production segment of another song. So we're sort of seeing how that's all coming together, which is quite cool. But yeah.
Dude, thank you again so much for coming on. This has been
my pleasure.
Southey Music on Twitch. Yeah, thank you for being such a wonderful guest, dude.
No worries. Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me.